Commander Zethkar's mandibles clicked in amusement as he watched the human liaison scribble frantically in what appeared to be a primitive paper notebook. The Galactic Defense Council's war room hummed with the latest holographic displays, quantum, battle computers, and neural link strategic interfaces, yet Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat hunched over her archaic writing implement like some backwater scribe. Fascinating, Zethkar chittered to his aide, Admiral Voxun. The humans send us their strategic advisor, and she takes notes like a first-cycle academy student. Perhaps they've confused us with their Historical Preservation Society? The other alien commanders shared knowing looks. The Zhektai Empire had dominated galactic warfare for 3 millennia. Their crystalline minds could process battlefield data at speeds that would liquefy organic neural tissue. The idea that these upstart humans, barely 2 centuries into space travel, could contribute meaningful military insight was almost insulting. Sarah's pen continued scratching across the paper, occasionally pausing as she consulted her tablet, or glanced at the main display showing the Drakmor invasion fleet approaching the Kepler 442 system. The enemy force was massive, over 2,000 ships arranged in their traditional hexagonal formation, a configuration that had crushed 17 civilizations in the past decade. Lieutenant Chen, Zethkar's translator, rendered his words with barely concealed condescension. Perhaps you'd like to share your observations with the Council? Sarah looked up, her brown eyes meeting his compound ones without flinching. Still analyzing the patterns, Commander. The Drakmor have interesting tendencies. Tendencies? Admiral Voxun's tentacles writhed with what passed for laughter among his species. Child, we have computed every possible tactical variation of their formation. Their tendencies are irrelevant against superior firepower and positioning. Of course, Admiral. Sarah returned to her notebook, making several more marks before closing it. I'm ready to contribute to the battle plan. The next 6 hours proved why the Galactic Defense Council was considered the premier military force in 3 spiral arms. Their coordinated fleet movements were precise, their firepower calculations flawless, their communication networks instantaneous. Every variable had been accounted for, every contingency planned. The Drakmor fleet arrived exactly on schedule. Zethkar's confidence began wavering 30 minutes into the engagement. Despite their superior numbers and technology, the coalition fleet was merely holding position. The Drakmor weren't falling for any of their calculated maneuvers. Worse, enemy ships seemed to anticipate their tactical adjustments before they were even implemented. How are they countering our quantum-encrypted battle commands? Admiral Voxun demanded, his skin shifting through several frustrated color spectrums. Sarah raised her hand quietly. Commander, permission to access the tactical display? Zethkar's attention was split between the deteriorating battle situation and this odd human request. You want to... What exactly? I'd like to upload my analysis to the main battle computer. Your paper scribblings? Despite the crisis, Zethkar couldn't hide his disbelief. Lieutenant, this is not the time for amateur theorizing, sir. Sarah's voice carried a strange calm that somehow cut through the chaos. With respect, you asked for human strategic input. This is it. The main display suddenly flickered as Sarah's tablet interfaced with the battle computer. Her handwritten notes appeared as a complex overlay on the tactical map, but these weren't random observations. They were behavioral algorithms, pattern recognition matrices, and probability cascades that seemed to predict Drakmor ship movements with startling accuracy. What in the void? Zethkar stared as Sarah's analysis highlighted weaknesses in the Drakmor formation that their quantum computers had completely missed. "Humans don't think like you do, Commander," Sarah explained, her fingers dancing across the interface as she adjusted fleet positions in real time. "Your computers process every possible variable and calculate optimal outcomes. But sometimes the answer isn't in the math. It's in understanding that your enemy is scared." Scared? Admiral Voxon's tentacles had gone completely still. "The Drakmor are apex predators. They don't experience fear." "No, but they experience uncertainty." Sarah highlighted 3 ship clusters on the display. "Look at their micro-adjustments over the last hour. Those aren't tactical improvements, they're nervous corrections. The captains in charge of those formations are second-guessing themselves." As if responding to her words, the marked enemy ships began a poorly coordinated maneuver that left their flanks exposed for exactly 17 seconds. Sarah's revised battle plan exploited that window with surgical precision. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. Coalition forces, guided by insights that no computer could have calculated, began systematically dismantling the supposedly invincible Drakmor fleet. Ship after ship fell to attacks that came from directions their doctrine insisted were impossible. Zethkar watched in stunned silence as his millennium of military experience was humbled by a human with a paper notebook. How did your primitive analysis surpass our quantum battle computers?" Sarah smiled, closing her notebook with a satisfied snap. "Because your computers tried to predict what the Drakmor should do based on logic and efficiency. I predicted what they would do based on the fact that they're living beings making decisions under pressure. Every species has tells, Commander, even apex predators." She stood and gathered her materials as the last Drakmor ships retreated into hyperspace. "Humans have spent our entire existence reading each other's micro-expressions, body language, and behavioral patterns just to survive. We developed pattern recognition as a survival skill before we even had written language. Your computers are impressive, but they can't replicate 50,000 years of evolutionary psychology." As the war room erupted in celebrations and damage, reports, Zethkar found himself staring at the human's discarded pen with something approaching reverence. The Galactic Defense Council had just learned that sometimes the most advanced technology couldn't compete with the most ancient wisdom. The Council's official report would later note that the Battle of Kepler 442 marked a turning point in coalition strategic doctrine. It also marked the day that Commander Zethkar began carrying a notebook of his own.